Hey there, this is Professor Valerie again. I am recording this because to talk about how to submit a short piece to a journal is it's not that it's complicated, but it has a lot of steps. If you want to, we can talk in person or, through video or chat or something, but I thought I'd just give an overview of some of the things that you can do so that to get started, and then maybe if you have questions, we can have a chat about it. So, I am at a page that's called Submittable, and this is the most used app in the publishing industry. And what it is, it's kind of a portal that has where all the major journals and publishers are and where they accept publications. So the first thing that you should do if you're interested in publishing, especially if it's more than one piece, is to create an account. It's free for the people who are submitting. For the publishers, they pay, so yay. And I already have an account, so I'm just going to assume that you're going to follow the steps. You can pause the video if you want. Follow the steps and then create an account. Definitely worth having. Because like I said, these days almost every journal accepts submission through this portal, so you kind of have to have the account, and also because the app is very well done and it keeps track for you of all the submissions that you've had, which can be tricky, and I'll explain later why you need to do it regardless. So I'm actually right now, I'm on the page that I use for the journal that I edit, which is Wraparound South. And so this is what you would see from the publisher's end of things. And these are all the ones that I've already read and given a grade of yes, I want it, maybe I want it, and no, I don't want it. And whoever submitted. So this is kind of like what the journal would have on their end. But this is what it looks like from the account where I actually submit. So you don't get to see what the editors are saying about you or anything like that. But I just wanted to show you what it looks like from that end. So these are my submissions, and it shows the ones that I'm still working on, the ones that I withdrew because I got accepted. I got that piece accepted. So for instance, this story, Harlequin Babies, I had sent it to, as you can see, like what, a dozen different journals. Once it got accepted, I had to contact all of these other journals and withdraw it. And the reason for that, I'll tell you in a minute. I'll, just have patience. And then it tells me the ones that are declined and the ones that are accepted. So it really keeps track for me of where I sent stuff out, who still has to answer, which is, really good. And also when it says received, it means that they may or may not have read it, but nobody has put any notes on it. And when it says in progress, it means that somebody at that end has read it and has also put a comment like I showed you on my end, which is, yes, maybe I want it. It's a green, a 0, maybe, I don't know. Let's see what else we get. And a -1, no, this is not for us. So why is this important? Well, because journals can take anywhere from 3 days, if you're really, really lucky, to even a couple of years, believe it or not. But generally speaking, it's between 3 to 6 months is when you can accept a reply. And if somebody has not replied to the work you submitted, if it's a short piece and they have not replied to you in 7 or 8 months, I would give up on that. If it's, or at least you can send them a note and say, and by this I mean if it's still under received. If it's in progress, there's still a hope that they will send you something. But if it still says received and nobody's read it, it's probably stagnant. Like this one, I have from 2016, they've had this piece of mine, and it's still under received. Nobody's looked at it, so it's obvious that, whatever, something went wrong on that end, and they're not going to read it. So I could actually delete it. I just don't, because I I like to keep track of where I sent stuff, like I said, and knowing that they have kept this work for this long, and I actually recognize this is a place where they actually charge you to send stuff in and read it. I know I'm never gonna send anything to them again, because it's obvious a waste of time and money. So that's why I keep them in there. Anyway, so this is where you would go to submit a journal and to a journal. And I also want to show something that before I take you through the process, I want to show you a service that they have. It's called Discover. And Discover is a really good way for you to find journals that are accepting publications right now. So there's like lots and lots and lots of different journals out there. There's like hundreds, if not even thousands. But every journal is a little different. Every journal has a little different style, different kind of writer that they're looking for. So later I'll talk a little bit about what you need to do in order to start keeping a list of the kind of journals that you would really like to be published in, because they have your, the kind of stories or fiction or something that you would like to be featured in, and also they look good, that they have a good presence, and they feature good artists there. I'll also send you some information in writing that you can peruse, because it's quite the process. So, but if you just like want to send something and it's a creative nonfiction stuff, right? You can kind of like look at the tabs over here, and let's try like a nonfiction, but let's also put literary so that it doesn't, or creative writing, and literary. And another thing that I want is, because it's pretty common these days for journals to charge you anywhere from $3 to maybe even $10 if it's a contest, or $20 some places, to read the work. When you're first starting out, you don't want to spend money like that, and because it takes a while to figure out which ones are the ones that it's worth sending the fees in, and which ones are just kind of like asking for too much money. But figure from $3 to $5, if you can spend the money, it's fair. That's pretty much what you would spend if you were to print out the manuscript, put it in a large envelope, put a letter in it, put a self-addressed stamped envelope, and with a stamp in it, and then mail the envelope first class, go to the post office. All of that, which is how we used to do things before online submissions became more popular, would have cost you at least $3. So the $3 is kind of a convenience fee. When it gets higher than that, I would start to consider whether or not you want to take the chance. And also, most journals don't really pay their contributors. So to start, I would say let's look for no fee submissions and see what's out there. And it tells you here, CIRC is open for nonfiction, creative nonfiction. So you can go through any of these and kind of like, it tells you what the deadline is, because journals have reading periods. So some of them read only from September to December, and it can get kind of confusing to try to keep track of all the journals' reading periods. And so the Discover feature on Submittable is one of my favorite things, because it just actually tells me who's looking right now. Not who, generally speaking, does this but doesn't usually. So I'm going to say that we're just going to, you can click somewhere and read a little bit more about what they're looking for. So let me just pick something for you here. I know Barrel House to be a good, well, let's do this one. It's themed, so them actually. So I just clicked on that one, and it says, our theme for this reading period is, what does it mean to encounter yourself in solitude and need solitude clarity? We want to know all the emotion, blah, blah, blah. So if your piece is something that you think would answer this, then I would submit. If not, I wouldn't bother. So it gives you other information. It tells you what the general manuscript guidelines are. They want you to title your document with your name, the genre, include a cover letter in the provided space, and I'll talk about that in a minute, your mailing address, blah, blah, blah. Should you submit something that is under simultaneous consideration, please indicate this in your cover letter. And what that means is, some journals do not want you to submit to more than one place. They want you to submit to theirs, and you have to wait until you get a response. Could be yes, could be no. You could wait for 6 months, 8 months, a year. until either you withdraw the piece or they respond to you, they do not want you to submit it somewhere else. Why is that? Because when you submit to a journal, what you're doing, what you're offering to them is what's called the first American serial rights. And if it's on the internet, then it's the first internet digital right. It's first American digital rights. So what that means really is that you are giving that journal the exclusive right to publish your piece for the first time. Your copyright are your own, and you always keep your copyrights as long as the journal is a fair journal, a good reputable journal. You should always keep your copyrights. Nobody owns the copyrights except the writer, but they do purchase the first American serial rights, meaning they have the right to be the first journal that showcases your work to the world. So that's why some of them say, don't do a simultaneous submission, because if we go through the process of all of this and then we accept it, we don't later want to have to, go back because we rejected other people because you told us no, and now we have a hole in this journal. The good news is that most journals these days understand that we can't wait around and twirl our thumbs for 8 months until somebody responds, and so most of them will accept you letting other journals, submitting to other journals, as long as there's an implicit understanding here, as long as soon as you hear from them that your piece has been accepted, and as long as you agree, I mean, there's still a moment in which, do you agree? Do you sign a contract? If you say yes, you agree, that means that you have to contact all the other journals and withdraw your piece. And you just simply do it automatically on this program, or you send them an email and say, my piece has been published elsewhere. And that's fine. Most places understand that. So submission guidelines, it's between May 1st and May 31st, and send one piece up to 2,000 words. So all of this stuff here, every journal is different, and everyone is going to ask you for something slightly different. So you should spend some time looking through this, and I wanted to show you the no fee because I assume that you definitely don't want to, spend $3, unless they promise to pay you for the publication. But even so, figure that like my acceptance rate, and I've been doing this for 2 decades now, my acceptance rate is, about, I want to say, it's been a little high recently. It's like 20%, and that's really high. Okay, that's really, really high. I think that like for people to have an acceptance rate between 1% and 3% is really good. So that's kind of the way it is. It's not even about the quality of the writing. It's just that there's so many people out there sending stuff to journals. Journals only accept 3 to 5 pieces per genre, and they only do this usually twice a year. Some journals a little more, but so there's a lot of competition, and it also has to do with the journal type, what kind of taste the editor has. There's so many variables here. So it really does work to your advantage to submit to as many places as possible, but also to just submit to places where you think you have a chance of where you want to be published. Because one of the worst things to do, and I can tell you this as somebody who is also an editor, is, as an editor, I read a piece, I have to make really tough decisions. I finally settle on the ones that I like. I contact the writer, and then the writer comes back and says, I don't like your journal, I'm withdrawing my piece. I'm like, well, why did you submit? You wasted my time, right? Or, oh, I didn't realize that your journal was only online, I wanted mine to be in print. And again, well, you could find this out before you submitted it, right? I spend time reading your piece and making this decision, and you're telling me that you don't value my time, right? So it's a very small industry, in spite of what it sounds like. Everybody knows each other. Do not blacklist yourself by being one of those people that did not research the journal before submitting and finds out at the time of acceptance that you don't want to be featured there, or B, give your piece to somebody else, sign their contract, and then forget to tell the other journals that, you've already gotten the piece accepted, because that's a big no-no. And believe me, that happened to me. I got in big trouble, and I didn't even do it on purpose. So, and then that journal blacklisted me for like 3 years. So I'm very, very careful right now. So this one, for instance, all prose 5,000 words or less, open to content, form, structure. So this is like pretty broad. And, it's a good place because they don't charge, and, it looks like they're pretty broad in terms of things that accept. But before I go and submit, I would still, go and check them out, which you can do by just clicking on there. And I think it's really worth to spend some time looking at, who these people are, how long they've been in business. Some of the things you want to look at are how many editors do they have, and this one has a lot of editors. It's a pretty handsome website, and that already tells me that there's a lot of people who have invested their time on this. It's not a fly-by-night, some guy in some basement who with a computer who's bored and decides he wants to start his literary magazine. It'll be on for 3 months and then disappear, right? This one looks like people actually put a lot of effort in it. They have a section for young writers and a blog, and I would really spend some time reading what they have, not just reading what they have, but also find out who is submitting and if the people who submit have any kind of like publication background. Like, are they writers that publish frequently, or are all the same people always showing up? Because it's the same people always showing up. This is a group of friends who decided to promote each other's work, and that's what they're doing, right? So I'm going to go to one of the poems, and I'm going to try to look for the author's bio. And usually it's either at the end over here, or there's a tag somewhere that says contributor list. So you read over here, and this will also give you an idea for how to write your own bio. And it looks like this person doesn't have any publications. So in fact, this is her first publication, which is okay. But if there are a few whose publication is their first, it's fine. But if all of them are first-time publications, not that it's bad, but you might want to try other journals so that you can be associated with writers who do have a lot of publications, so that it looks better for you in terms of your careers, growing your career as a writer. So I am going to say that this is only as a last resort kind of thing. I would not make this my first submission. I would look for a journal that has more reputation, more reputable writers having written for that one. So this is what you do in Submittable, and that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is probably better, is if you go to Poets and Writers, and they have a website. And Poets and Writers, it's a journal that's been around for a very, very, very long time, and it's one of the most reputable journals in the industry that tells you about the industry of publishing. And so they have different kind of like tags here, and publishing your writing is one of them. And they have sublists of literary journals that and writing contests. But you can go to literary magazines, and as you can see, they are organized differently. So if you did something like creative nonfiction, let's see if I can find, or narrative nonfiction, it's the same thing. Creative nonfiction. Oh, okay. So here you can, just maybe just leave it open, or you can see if there's any subgenre here that, like healing and health would be a good one. And then accept simultaneous, and, you can make it even 50, and filter. And it gives you a list of all these journals, okay? And all of the ones that are listed in Poets and Writers are what they call a CLMP members, which is the Community of Literary Magazines and Presses. They are more likely to be reputable, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't check out before you submit to them, and just kind of go through and, yes, this is something that I think I could do, and no, this is not. Okay. Poets and Writers is a good place for you if you're interested in doing this as a career too. It's a good place to just kind of like look at it, spend some hours looking over what's out there, and then kind of make a list of the journals that you think are good journals for you to get started in. And what are those journals? Well, they're journals that are reputable. They've been around a long time. How do you know if they're reputable? they have usually a very long list, or at least a good list of editors, more than one. Even if there's one, doesn't mean it's bad, but it's less likely that it's a good one. If they've been around for a long time, if they're associated with a writing program at a university, probably means that the people who work there are actually not only published writers, but also professors who teach writing. So people who have been in the industry for a really long time. And of course, the litmus test is also, do their writers, the writers that they publish, when you go and look at the table of at their contributor list, at the bios of the writers, do these writers have a lot of publications? Not all of them, of course. You want to see a mix of someone who's new to the genre, but generally speaking, a reputable magazine will feature a lot of writers who are very experienced. Some of them will pay, a lot of them will not. That is not something that disqualifies a good journal. Most journals, it takes a lot of money, even just online, it takes a lot of money keeping a journal running. And you don't get rich from publishing in a literary journal, but what it does is it's a huge boost to your career. If you go into anything, that's like, if you want to go to graduate school, if you want to go to, even if it's not in writing, just having a publication, especially if it's a reputable journal, is a huge boost. The second thing, as a writer, editors and literary agents read journals. They're looking for new voices. When they see one that really catches their attention, and this has happened to me a lot, they contact the journal and they say, we really like this writer, give us their contact information. They contact the writer and they say, we read your piece in blah, blah, blah. Do you have a novel for us? Do you have a book length thing for us? Now, editors, publishers, agents, they want book length works. So, if they contact you and you don't have one, that's unfortunate, but sometimes it happens. I know it's happened to me. They don't usually take you on unless you have something that they can sell, because selling stories and essays, even if they pay you, they usually pay you like, the most I've ever gotten paid was $2,000, and that's really rare. Usually it's between like $25, $10, and that's if they pay, or sometimes they send you copies of the journal, which is worth something. But you don't get paid in literary journals. It's more about building your audience and building your career, and also the prestige of having your work published, especially if it's published alongside other writers who are very recognizable and very well known. So that's why it's really worth to spend some time online here and look at what's out there, making a list of the journals, finding out when their reading period is, keeping track of that, and sending it out. Another way to do this, and this is the last one I will show you, is it's New Pages. Let's see if it comes up. New Pages is a subscription place that lists literary magazines, and they also have a call for submission, which makes things very much easier, because once again, instead of you having to find out when the submission period is, going journal by journal, it tells you right now who is looking for submissions, and if they have a theme going, it will tell you what it is. All right, so I am back on the Submittable page because it would take too long to go through everything, but I have already gone on through to look at these, and sadly, for the ones that do not have a submission feed, there is not a whole lot of choice. However, this Metonym journal over here is an undergraduate journal that's affiliated with a university, so it would be a good choice for somebody who is still a student and would look good in a publication. So I actually think that the best one that I see from this list is the After Happy Hour review. So I'm going to click on it and show you what the process is. So I'm going to click on submit, and I'm actually not going to submit because I don't have anything that I can send them at this time, but I'm going to pretend that it is. All right, so if you don't have any teaching creative writing credentials, don't worry about it. Don't say that just say you're a young writer, just like I had in the portfolio instructions, use that. Um, and then yes, this piece is unpublished, and this piece is a simultaneous submission. I agree. I will notify after happy hour. Blah blah blah. And then you go ahead and choose the file and make sure that you have actually looked at what they want. So in this case, it's use standard manuscript formatting, 12-point font, 1-inch margin. We read blind, so please also remove all identifying information. So this is good to know, because if they don't say that, usually you need to have that into the actual submission, but this one doesn't. And that's it. So make sure that you do what they say and you upload the file by hitting here, and then you submit. And then you will, this will show in your, when you go and open the account again, this will show and it will tell you whether, it's in process, or it's just received, or it's been declined. And you will also get an email. They will send you an email telling you that they have received the work, and when they accept it or not accept it, they will also send you a notification by email. So I also like to follow them, because then sometimes I go to Submittable and I look at the ones that I follow, because those are the ones that I want to submit to again. And so I have my following over here, and these are the ones that I follow. And as you can see, because they all have different reading periods, some of them, when it says opportunities, it means that they're reading at this time, but that doesn't mean that they're reading for what you have to send them. So it's always good to open it, and here it tells you, oh yeah, their opportunities are not submissions at all. It's about you buying their books, or if you're a current subscriber, they do have some stuff that's open. If you're not a subscriber and you want to submit something, then there's a $4 fee. So it gives you all the information that you need. All right, so this is kind of an overview, but that's what you want. And when you look through, I think the best one for that kind of search is New Pages. When you look at the submissions, you should look for something that is that maybe either has the theme, or even the journal itself is looking for the kind of subject that you're treating. So if it's about dealing with illness, then look to see if there's a journal right now that is looking for types of works that have to do with dealing with a chronic illness. And believe me, there is a kind of journal for anything that you can write. That's why there are so many pages to look through, and it's why it's such a long and convoluted process. But you get used to it, and after a while you start to get which journals are the good ones that you want to submit to. Another way to do it too is, if you know of any contemporary writer, look at where they're publishing their stories, and maybe try there. So your professors, you can look me up and see where I'm publishing my work. But I am a fiction writer primarily, I should say. But we also have Christina Olson, we have Jared Seston, we have Toni Morris, and we have Danelle Lejeune. You want to look where they're getting published and look at those journals. That's a pretty surefire way of knowing that you're picking a journal that's pretty reputable. If not, like I said, if you have a contemporary writer that you like, follow them, find out where they're submitting, and submit there. So there's many ways to go about it, but all of them are, it takes a little time, it takes a little bit of an effort, and you kind of have to invest. There are lots of journals that publish almost exclusively college students, and students who are still enrolled in college. I strongly recommend looking at those as well, because that's a really good way to start building up your publications. These are career builders. The likelihood that you'll get your story published in a top journal the very first time that you send out, not impossible, but difficult. But once you start getting your work out there, even if you start out with maybe local journals, eventually you get to the point where these publications start to build a reputation for you, and then it's much easier for you to get accepted into the more reputable journals. So I hope that this was a good overview. Like I said, if you want, we could talk a little bit more if you have any questions, but I thought that I'd show you actually step by step so we can go through, because it takes time and you can go through this later by yourself. And good luck. I hope you get excellent publications and that this is the start of a great career.